Hey everyone, welcome to my channel or welcome back. My name's Katie. If you're new, thanks for stopping by. So today I'm going to be filming my Pan That Palette update. I wasn't initially planning on filming today. I've had a really busy day. I just got back to the city, but I still have a little bit of daylight left and I was test driving my graduation makeup. I feel a little bit like a Muppet with false lashes on, but the more I look at it, the more I kind of like them. I figured I had unstyled hair, but at least my makeup is done, so I thought I would sit down and film this video. So here we are. I have a lot to share with you guys. I've had a really good month with this project. I finished 2 shades and then I'm actually down 4 altogether, so we have quite a bit to talk about, and it's a pretty exciting update, at least for me. I'm really coming down the home stretch and I feel good about that. So without further ramblings, I'm gonna get straight on into the video. So just as a little recap, I've been working on the Pat McGrath Mini Sublime and the Natasha Denona Mini Retro with the intention of finishing as many of those shades as possible and panning as much of those 2 palettes to completion. So far I have managed to finish a couple of shades from each of them. So in the Mini Sublime I had finished 1 shade. I had pan in the top 2 shades, and then I was hoping to hit pan on the bronze shade, and then I've been completely ignoring the dark brown matte for the entirety of this project basically. And then for Mini Retro I had already finished 1 shade. I had pan in everything else. I was hoping to finish the pink matte and hit side pan on the sparkly topper shade and the silvery shade. So that's where I was as of the last update. And then this is what we are looking like right now. So as you can see, I did decide to make a Franken palette. I'm really glad to have all of my shimmers in one place. I think this makes it a lot easier for me to reach for this, as well as like tuck it in my makeup bag when I'm traveling like I was last week. So I'm pretty happy with the setup, even though obviously I did lose 1 shade in the process, but we will talk about that. So starting off with the numbers and the usages, the first one I'm going to start off with Sinful, as I always do. And so this has been like my default inner corner highlight shade for quite some time. I don't use it every day, but I use it most days, and I've used this one 17 times since the last update. I said last update that I thought I might hit side pan. I realized that was a reach as soon as I said it, but like it was out there, so I went with it. I kind of knew it wasn't going to happen, but I have been kind of working down the sides, and I feel like I'm definitely getting a lot closer to side pan. I've discovered with these shades that they actually are more repressible than I initially thought, so I would not be at all surprised if the shade does end up being repressed by the next update, mainly because I find with these, because they're a very sort of soft, flaky formula, once you get down around the sides, it gets a lot harder to like pick up product, and I just don't really enjoy having to work that hard to get my eyeshadow on, so I'm probably going to repress that. It did fix the issue with Gold Nectar, so I'm thinking the same thing will probably apply with this one. But yeah, 17 uses I'm pretty happy with, although I will say mostly with this one I do use it on a tiny pencil brush and I'm not using it on a massive portion of the lid, but I am reaching into it regularly, and I feel like I'm definitely seeing more steady progress on this one than I have been over the last couple months, so that is awesome. So next up I have the shade Gold Nectar, and this was really my focus shade. I guess technically I used this shade more than anything else, but Gold Nectar kind of was my focus because I do not have a ton left in this. I did end up deciding to repress this one because it was sort of doing the same thing that Sinful is doing, where it's kind of like compressing when I put a brush in there, and it was really hard to pick up. It wasn't like hard pan, it was just very compressed. So I did decide to repress this one. As of repressing, I had enough to pretty much just fill the entirety of the pan with a very thin layer. I managed to re-hit pan on that within a couple of uses. I want to say it was like 3-ish uses. I've used this one an additional 12 times, and this is all that I have remaining. So I'm really happy with the progress on this one. I've been very motivated to reach for it. It's been a very sort of sunny last few weeks, and when the sun comes out, especially in the summer, I definitely do want to reach for gold, so I've been really enjoying reaching for this one. Also, when I go to visit my parents, they're a little bit more old school, and I generally try to tone down the makeup just a little bit because I don't want to make them too uncomfortable in their own home. So this was a really great travel palette to accompany a more matte heavy palette and just sort of go for the neutral looks. So I was really enjoying reaching into all of these, but Gold Nectar specifically, and this one, I think with the way that I'm going on this one, I would not be at all surprised if this was finished by the next update. So moving on to Sextrovert, as you can see, I did hit pan on this one. I used this one 16 times, so I definitely was very much leaning into it. I had a pretty big dip on this and a very wide dip on this one as of the last update, so when I hit pan it expanded pretty quickly. I have a pretty decently sized pan on this one, and I'm really happy about that. I feel like this one is definitely one that I've been enjoying a lot. It seems like a basic shade, but I really love a good bronze, so I've been very much enjoying reaching for this one. I think I said this in the last update too, and it still applies. I've been really enjoying using Sextrovert and Sinful together as a halo eye, pairing that with some of the mattes from the Melt Mary Jane palette, which has been like one of my favorite things recently. So I've been wearing that look a lot, or variations of it, and really enjoying it. So I think this one, even though I was a little bit slower on the uptake with this one, I think especially once I get Gold Nectar done and we get more into the summer, I think I'm going to be reaching for this one a lot and probably make some good progress on it over the next couple months. So I think the elephant in the room is the fact that Illicit is missing, which was right here. This is now Industrial from Mini Retro. I did decide to declutter Illicit. I've been kind of going back and forth on this one just like in my own head for a little while, and I really wasn't enjoying using it. I think I had a whole vent in like one of the previous updates about how I just really was not enjoying using it. It sort of had a tendency to sort of ruin looks that I was incorporating it in, and I just didn't enjoy it, so I figured it was time to let it go. I do not regret that decision one bit. It definitely made me feel a lot better about this palette. And then once that one was gone, I had 2 empty spaces left in this palette, which perfectly aligned with the number of shades that were left in Mini Retro, so it all worked out really, really well. So Illicit is gone. I think I'd used it like 15 times in this project overall, which was maybe like probably about 15 more times than I would have used it otherwise. So I did give it a good hard college try to see if I could make it work, but it just really wasn't a formula and a color that suited my personal preferences for dark shadows. This is very, very neutral for me, but I do really love a smoky eye. But generally, if I want some more depth on the outer corner of the eye, I really like a sort of creamier, thicker formula. So things like Natasha Denona, Melt, or ABH I find work really well for me. Illicit was very sort of thin and powdery and dusty, and I really just didn't enjoy working with it. So yeah, definitely time to let it go. No regrets there. So moving on to Mini Retro, I think I've talked about this again in previous updates where the packaging on that really started to self-destruct, and the more I take it places and the more I pull it out and use it, the worse it's gotten. So once I got down to 2 shades, it sort of felt like it made the most sense to just get those shades out of that palette and put them into a different one. I also knew that I was traveling and I really didn't want to take 2 palettes with me when I really only needed to take 1, so I figured that would solve my issues. Starting off with Galaxia, which was the glittery topper shade, I have been really, really enjoying that shade. I don't generally go for sparkly topper shades, but Galaxia was stunning and I really did enjoy reaching into it. So I really was just leaning into it, wearing it very, very often, and I was putting it everywhere. I was using it as an inner corner highlight, I was using it on the lid. Some days I was taking it all the way up to the brow bone. I did try it as a face highlighter a couple of times just to see what would happen. Lots of glitter that stays on your face for a few days is basically what happened there, but I suppose if you wanted Coachella or Euphoria vibes, you could do that. So I used Galaxia an additional 14 times to finish it for 62 uses in this project overall. So it got a lot of love and I really enjoyed it. I do kind of miss it for certain looks, but it's definitely not something that I would go out of my way to try to dupe or replace, but I will say that it was something that I thoroughly enjoyed using, especially over the last couple of months. So moving on to Industrial, which is the shade right here in my Franken palette. I used this one 4 times since the last update. It did have a pretty decently sized pan on it, but 4 uses didn't make a big difference, and I definitely did not have side pan as of repressing it. I think that I will probably ease off on using this one a little bit over the next couple of months as I try to sort of focus in on these warmer shades, but I definitely will be reaching into this one probably a couple times a month, so I imagine progress on this one will be a little bit slower, at least for right now, until I finish up some of the other shades in this palette, but I do definitely want to see progress on this one every month for as long as I have it in this project. So next up is 60s, which I did have repressed over here, and this one shattered in transit. I opened up my makeup bag the next day and went to do my makeup, and 60s was everywhere. I tried to salvage it, but it really wasn't salvageable, so I did end up having to say goodbye to that one a little bit earlier than I'd planned. I knew once I had Industrial finished, I probably wasn't going to keep 60s around, but I did really want to keep it around just to have a default shade to work with Industrial, because I've been kind of like searching through my collection for other things that work, especially because I find Industrial does make some really nice monochromatic looks with 60s, and I was really enjoying doing that, especially when I was in a rush. So I am kind of sad that that one ended up taking itself out a little bit early. I did use it 3 times. I didn't really have significant pan expansion. It looked virtually the same as of the last update as of repressing, so not a big difference there. But I will say what I think I've learned through doing this project and my experience with Vintage Taupe as well is that I just don't think that the Natasha Denona Creamy Matte formula, for whatever reason, does not repress well. Vintage Taupe started to crack and pop out of the pan after being repressed, and I thought it was just a me thing, and the first time it happened I was willing to write it off as a one-time occurrence, but when it happened the second time, I think that it's just more of a formula issue and how that reacts to rubbing alcohol. So at least I know that going forward, and I won't be trying to do that again. You win some, you lose some, and I am sorry to see that one go at least a little bit early. And the last shade was Vintage Taupe, which I had hoped to finish, and I did. So I used this one 9 additional times to finish it up for 80 uses total in this project, and mainly for this one I was able to finish it fairly quickly. Even though 80 uses is honestly quite a lot, I was able to finish this one up in only 9 uses because I was double tasking it as a blush as well. I've talked about this in other updates, but I just found that the pinks in this palette made me look a little bit like I had pink eye, so I found I could use them as blushes and make them work that way. I did reach into this one a couple times as a transition shade when it was appropriate, but for the most part I was able to finish this one off with within a few months using it as a blush, so I was definitely really happy to have that one finished. It did make a fairly nice blush. It pulled a little orangey on the cheeks, which I was not expecting, but it did definitely work, and so I'm really glad to have that one finished. So that is the update for how things went for me for this month. So in terms of what I want to do over the next month, I think the main goal on this one is to finish Gold Nectar. I am very close. As you can see, there's really not a ton left in there, and every time I dip into this, because the layer is so thin, the pan expands pretty significantly. So I want to say I used this one 12 times since the last update, and I managed to go from repressing, rehitting pan, and finishing, I would say, like 2/3 of the pan. So I think another probably 10 uses or so, and this one will be gone as well. So that's my main goal for the next update, is to finish that one off. I like golds on myself sometimes, but in terms of the sort of neutral metallic shades that I would go for, gold would definitely be lower down on my list. I would go for a bronze or a rose gold or a copper over these. So I feel like one less gold in my collection is never going to be a bad thing, and this is a really gorgeous formula and I do enjoy using it. So I'm going to have this one done, and once I'm done I will have definitely enjoyed it, but I will also be happy to finish it up. I do want to continue on working towards some pan expansion and Sextrovert. Again, I've been reaching into this one pretty often and really enjoying it, and it does pair really nicely with Sinful, especially if I want to go a little bit more cool toned or a little bit less overtly warm. For Sinful, I'm probably going to end up repressing this one over the next few days, so once that happens and it dries, I would like to re-hit pan on that repress shade and just sort of reassess how much is actually left in this pan and figure out how long I think it might take to finish it up. So I'm thinking a couple more months on that one, and it could be finished off at the rate I'm going. And for Industrial, I do want to re-hit pan on that one. I don't know how close I am. I think I've used this once since repressing it, so not a whole lot of change, but I think a few more uses and I could probably get there. So that's kind of what I'm thinking I can do for the next month. Thanks so much for watching. If you're still here, I hope you enjoyed it. If you're doing this project, feel free to let me know what you're working on and how it's going. If you haven't already subscribed and you want to see more of my face, I upload new beauty content when I can, so if that sounds interesting, feel free to hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a like, and hopefully I will catch you in the next one. Bye!